In June, I made a video on a new discovery in Morocco, where specifically a cave in Jebel Irud, where they found some specimens, and once they analyzed them, they found that they belong to our species, albeit Homo Homo sapiens. They were dated to about 300,000 years, and they pushed back our appearance, our emergence, by around 100,000 years now. Sometimes news appears that either um, or debunk other studies that have been produced. Now, the discovery of uh, Jebel Irud sort of was an exciting discovery. Every archaeological discovery is an exciting discovery, and it pushes our knowledge further. It expands our knowledge. Um, and today I was reading. I didn't have where I was working. I didn't have really good internet, so I basically could only read Twitter, and I follow a few journals in Twitter, archaeological journals, and some some magazines. And yesterday, they released a paper from a Finnish university, I think, Uppsala, that sort of confirms that our species, Homo sapiens, more or less emerged around that time. So I'm going to share the screen, and we shall discuss the article. I'll just make this a bit bigger so everyone can sort of see. That's better. Okie dokie. Now, how are you, John? To be amused? Yeah. As I'm not going to do anything next week, I might as well get some of the work done today, this week, and up until Sunday. So there might be a few more surprises. But let's get on with the article. Also, just on a note, I've been having a back and forth with an Australian author who has a hypothesis that again, due to genetics, he's read a lot of genetic studies on Homo sapiens Neanderthals, Denisovians, and he's used data from China, etc. And he's trying to construct a model that instead of out of Africa, it's into Africa, or basically that Homo sapiens emerged more or less in Central Asia, Siberia, where they found the Denisovan caves in the Altai Mountains of Siberia. It's close to China, China, the Indian, Pakistan, that area of the world, and he's pushing that hypothesis, that model. But stories like these or studies like these only seems to only reinforce the out of Africa model. It's still only a hypothesis. It is not yet completely a theory, because we are, as we have seen with the Jebel Irud, we are discovering new artifacts, new samples every day of bones and so on. And now, this study from the Uppsala University, in the description, I have the actual press release, and I have the actual study from the science publication, but it's science publication only shows part of it. Let's get on with it. The genome analysis of ancient human remains from KwaZulu-Natal revealed that southern Africa had an important role in writing the history of mankind. Absolutely. Not just mankind, but hominins in particular, because they are at this moment. John Hawke, an anthropologist from University of America, I can't remember which one it is. I am ashamed, but my memory is filled with facts and not with names and places, but never mind. And he's currently excavating the Star Chamber Naledi cave where they found Homo naledi. So he's doing it now. They're excavating now. So that's in South Africa, and it's an important hominin site, as that is a Homo naledi. He belongs to our lineage, and he only died out 385,000 years ago, more or less. This time, they could have been contemporary with modern humans. That is why it's important. Research team from Uppsala University, Sweden. I said Finland, I apologize. The University of Johannesburg with Witwatersrand in South Africa present their results in the September 28th, that was yesterday, edition of Science. That's the one I have linked in the description, except it's behind a paywall, so never mind. There is a way to get it, but I won't post it in the description. Sorry. Now, the team sequenced the genomes of 7 individuals who lived in southern Africa 2,300 to 300 years ago. The 3 oldest individuals, dated from 2,300 to 1,800 years ago, were genetically related to the descendants of the southern Khoisan people. The 4 younger individuals who lived 500 to 300 years ago were genetically related to the current-day South African Bantu-speaking groups. Quote, this illustrates the population replacement that occurs in southern Africa. I won't get into that. That's just incidental. Says first author Karina Schlebusch. I think I pronounced it right. Population geneticist of Uppsala University. The author estimates that the divergence among modern humans to have occurred between 350,000 and 260,000 years ago. Now, the divergence, or however you want to pronounce it, is from our ancestor species, which is Homo antecessor in Spain, archaic Homo sapiens in other places, or Homo heidelbergensis, which I favor. And it's based on the ancient Stone Age hunter-gatherer genomes, right? So they've managed to get some genomes from these, the oldest studies, and they did the genetics. I don't know genetics, how they get there, but they do. They are the geneticists. The deepest split time of 350,000 years ago represents a comparison between an ancient Stone Age hunter-gatherer boy from Belize of South Africa, African Mandika. They are ethnic groups. This means that modern humans emerged earlier than previously thought. And we have sample evidence from Jabal Irhoud. The skull they found there is Homo sapiens. He has archaic features, obviously. That is not... that is significant, but it's not dismissive of him being Homo sapiens or modern Homo sapiens. We tend to still divide because of some archaic features that the earliest 300,000-year-old Homo sapiens had, that were, for example, the brow ridge above their eyebrows, the occipital orbs that they called, occipital ridges. Sorry, they were slightly larger than modern humans are, but they did have chins, and that is purely Homo sapiens sapiens. Just to so you guys know, only Homo sapiens sapiens, modern humans, have chins, the chin bone, prominent chins. All other species going backwards have a weak, what you call a weak chin. They don't have a chin. So yes. This means that the modern humans emerged earlier than previously said. Matthias Jacobsen, the population geneticist of Uppsala University, who headed the project together with Stone Age archaeologist Marlies Lombard of the University of Johannesburg. The fossil record of East Africa, and in particular Homo and Herto fossils, they are in Kenya, Ethiopia, Tanzania areas. Homo is in Tanzania, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm probably wrong because my memory of names are a bit fuzzy. I know the facts, but I just don't know. Just forget about the names. Have been used as to set an emergence of anatomically modern humans of about 180,000 years ago. The deeper estimates for modern human divergence at 350,000, 260,000 years ago coincide with the Florisbat and Houdielspunt fossils, contemporaries of the small brain Homo lolleri in southern Africa. It has that's and Hogespunt fossils. Pronounce it correctly. Says Marlies Lombard. It will be interesting to see in the future if we find any evidence of interaction between these groups. So, apparently, the what are they called again? The Florisbat and the Houdielspunt fossils date from that time, and they would have been in place to the same as Jebel Irhoud right across to the north in Morocco from South Africa. So human Homo sapiens sapiens basically occupied all of Africa by this time. From this time already. Sparse population, obviously. But my beers thought would run out of the bottle. So they would be contemporary with these fossils from Jebel Irhoud, and they would have been contemporary with Homo naledi. It would be interesting if we find some evidence of how they interacted. Did they hunt? Did they compete? Were they tolerant of each other, etc., etc.? We will never know until we find the evidence. We can ask questions though. Anyway, we did not find any evidence of deep structure or archaic admixture among southern African Stone Age hunter-gatherers. So they were very similar. Very, what's that word? Sometimes, oh, God damn it, I hate myself when I forget words. Homogeneous. They were very homogeneous then. Instead, we find some evidence of deep structures in the West African population, but that affects only a small fraction of their genome, and it is about the same age as the deepest divergence among all humans. So this study, what they're doing up to now, what I've read, and what we've just talked about now, basically, from their data, Homo sapiens sapiens, modern humans, emerged about 350,000 to 260,000 years ago, and they are very homogeneous. So they must have spread out very quickly from wherever the area that they emerged from initially, or the ancestral stock that gave rise to us here here in Africa, in comparison to the Homo sapiens neanderthalensis and later or more or less Homo sapiens denisovans in Eurasia, which we split from them sometimes before. The modern humans or Homo sapiens seem to have been very homogeneous. He says that there were some in the Western population, some uh, differences, but they could be traced to our ancestor stock, Homo sapiens ancestor stock, where we emerged from the split between Homo sapiens Homo sapiens neanderthalensis, and Homo sapiens denisovans. And I have to mention always that other fourth one that we don't know about. That's only that their DNA is only found in the Andaman Islands. So there's four. The author also found that in all current day Kusan populations, admixture with migrant East African pastoralists a little over 1,000 years ago. So all Kusan have some genetic mixture with the East African pastoralists that came over 1,000 years ago. We could not detect this widespread East African admixture previously, since we did not have an unadmixed sun group to use as reference. Now that we have access to ancient DNA of people who lived in this landscape before the East African migration, which happened 1,000 years ago, I have a political perspective on this, but I'm not going to mention it because it's not needed. But I'm sure if any of the anyone that watches this now and reads this article and is a shit poster like I am, so on, he will find it. He will see it. It's out there. So I'm not gonna touch it because I'll get demonetized again, and I've already been demonetized in my last video, which is shit. Oh my God. So that's why I think I'm going to make more videos per week, maybe one a week, because I need to get 1,000 views per week. So we'll see. Promote me, guys. Need 1,000 views per week. We were able to detect admixture percentage in all sun groups modern after the migration. The admixture percentage of the Khoikhoi, historically identified as pastoralists, are higher than previously estimated. So there was mixing by the pastoralists and the hunter-gatherers in East Africa, in the Southern Africa 1,000 years ago. That gave rise to the modern populations we have now. Of the Iron Age individuals, the Iron Age is 1,800 years ago, 1,800 years ago. 3 carry at least one Duffy null allele. I don't know what this is, what this means. Honestly, don't know. Protecting against malaria. I should have read that. And 2 have at least one sleeping sickness resistance variant of the APOL1 gene. The Stone Age individuals do not carry these proactive alleles. So comparing the modern ones, the Iron Age individuals developed the resistance to malaria and sleeping sickness. That's from the tsetse fly. But the earlier ones, the 2,300 and earlier, did not have these protective alleles. It means that they must have admixed with some group. This tells us that the Iron Age farmers carried these disease-resistant variants when they migrated to Southern Africa. So the first co-author, Helena Malmstrom, archaeogeneticist of the Uppsala University. It's quite farmers. It's quite interesting that farmers have developed these resistances, and I'll tell you guys why. It is because farming means a more settled population, a settled group that doesn't move around the environment as much. So when you get a group of people that are living together all the time, you do get diseases. And naturally, hunter-gatherers, on the other hand, for example, because they move around, they could plan their movements to not coincide with, say, a period of the year where the malaria carrying mosquitoes are more active. That is an example of how you could avoid not getting sick. But if you remain in one place all year round, you will get sick. So, and then when natural selection takes place, you develop an immunity to those diseases with given enough time. And enough time could be 5 to 7 generations. It's not a lot. 1,000 years, easily. You could develop resistances to some endemic diseases. Maurice Lombard said that the archaeological deposits dating to the time of the split by 3,100 to 2,600 years ago attest to South Africa being populated by tool-making hunter-gatherers at the time. Of course, although human fossils are sparse, those of Florisbad and Hodges Point. That's how you say it. That's Hodges Point. Are seen as transitional to modern humans. These fossils may therefore be ancestral to the Balito Bay Boy and other hunter-gatherers who lived in southern Africa 2,000 years ago. What they are saying here is that the date, due to the, like I said earlier, due to this, maybe some of the archaic features which Homo sapiens SP, archaic Homo sapiens, or our most direct ancestor had, or the transitional part. Anyway, we are transitioning at the moment. Every living organism on Earth is transitioning. That's how evolution occurs. We are a transitional species. Even though we are Homo sapiens sapiens, we will evolve into another species, split up, split off. Who knows? We could even die off. But at this point in time, because in the world at 300,000 years ago, there were at least 5 to 6 species, 3 to 4 humans, a Homo naledi, and possibly an archaic Homo sapiens, and even also we had a Homo florensis from the Flores, which was really small, and we may have even had Homo erectus in some parts of Asia, living in this time 300,000 years ago. There was a lot of different humans at that time, and of course you would find our species having still some archaic features, because of course we were slowly transitioning. But mostly, this is me giving my hypothesis, mostly we would have been settled as Homo sapiens in Africa around 300,000 years ago. I won't say that 350, but at least 2,600 years ago we were Homo sapiens. And we then gave rise, we spread out, of course, obviously. The transition from archaic to modern humans might not have occurred in one place in Africa, but in several. I agree with that, yes. We have a 300,000-year-old skull in Morocco. We have 350, 260,000-year-old skeletal remains in Homo, or 180 in East Africa, and in Southern Africa, at least 300,000, 350 to 2,600 years ago in Southern Africa. We can see at least 3 or 4 points which are vastly spread out and geographically that Homo sapiens evolved. But the evolution would have been, again, this is my opinion, what I'm going to say now, would have been convergent. So they would have more or less converge in time, because they as they moved around and as climate uh, altered and oscillated, they would have come in contact with each other, and they would have reinforced some features and other features would have been slowly um, de-emphasized. For example, the brow ridges, and that's what would have happened. Of course, yes, I agree with your statement that there would have been more than one place where we evolved in Africa, including but in several in one place, but in several, including Southern Africa, Northern Africa, as recently reported. Uh, God, I can't pronounce that name. Jebel Irud. Um, um, Thus, both paleoanthropological and genetic evidence increasingly point to a multi-regional origin of anatomically modern humans in Africa. This to me sums it up perfectly. Ends it there. Well, it doesn't end it there, but from what we know now, yes, that's it. Homo sapiens did not originate in one place in Africa, but might have evolved from older forms in several places of the continent, with gene flow between groups from different places. Like I just said. Thank you, Karina Schlebusch. It's remarkable that we can now sequence entire genomes of ancient human remains from tropical areas, which is good, such as southern coast of South Africa, Helena Malmstrom. This is promising to our several, of course. And we see here a picture of her. But this picture, this model, basically sums up what's happening. We have our stock ancestor, which I would say, and I'm tending every more until there's evidence that contradicts this. Homo heidelbergensis. Neanderthals and Denisovians split off earlier, and they split off genetically and more or less physically in Eurasia, both of them. Then around 300,000 years ago, where it says Uppsala 2, whatever this means, it's just something. You have Florisbad skull around that area. You also now in this area have to put Jebel Irud. They mentioned another one which I can't pronounce. God damn it, let's get back. Hogespunt. Yeah. So I have Florisbad and Hogespunt there, Jebel Urud as well in this general area. And then they have this splitting from to the present day. You have the non-Africans. The non-Africans. That would be Eurasia and the rest of the world. The East Africans, which split from the non-Africans. You have the West Africans, the Central African foragers. They would be the ones living in the Congo, possibly. You have the Northern Kusan. This is Northern Kusan. This is South Africa, by the way, even though it's southern. This is the purple and the red is South African. You have the Northern Kusan. You have the Southern Kusan. If you want to know, the Kusan are the people that have that clicking sound when they speak. So that to me is very accurate, and I will accept this for now as fact, because my perspectives and my what I accept as facts changes as new facts come along. So for now, this is perfect. This is correct, not perfect. You can't have nothing perfect. So, culminating Cumulatively, these findings shed new light on our deep African history, and show that there is still much more to learn about our processes of becoming modern humans. We are still in the process of becoming modern humans. We are evolving. So, and that the interplay between genetics and archaeology has increasingly important role to play. Of course, it does. And not just that, you also have other sciences that we should also mention. We have the chemists who prepare the samples and date the samples. You have the geologists who date interpret the data from of the landscape that they had, that the layers. We have the geologists, geographers who interpret the spatial landscape data. We have the anthropologists and archaeologists who we interpret everything to see how they lived. So yes, there's a lot of science involved in archaeology, and this article is very apt in answering that we did evolve in Africa and we spread out, but our common ancestor, Homo heidelbergensis, left Africa much earlier than we thought, and we also left Africa as well much earlier than we thought, because we have genetic markers in Neanderthals, modern human genetic markers in Neanderthals 200,000 years ago in Spain, for example, and in other places. Just an example. So there we go. I've come to the end, and now I can say hello to the people that are watching. Sorry, guys, I didn't interact with you more. I was I only have one. My laptop is occupied elsewhere, so yes. Godiva, how are you? Thank you for coming along. John the Bemused already said. Melphis 999, thank you, and how are you? And Omegon, thank you for coming on, man. Do you want me to send you a link and an invite, and we can talk a bit? If you're still there, or are you having your stream? How dare I? What, Malphus? What I do? What I do? I didn't do nothing. Yes, I am. Oh, come on. Sorry. Melphis 999. Okay, man. Oh my God, no problems, dude. Sleep well. I'm also going to go to bed in a little bit. I'm knackered and not feeling too well. Still recovering. But yeah, man. Thank you for dropping by. I hope you enjoyed the show. And I might do. I will definitely do another one at least before I leave for London on Tuesday. Oh God, I hope I can leave for London. Can I make a? Nah, never mind. Anyway, okay, guys. I'm going offline. Thank you for coming along, and thank you, Omegon. Thank you, Melphis 999, Godiva 7721. And John the Bemused. You and I are the only ones that do not have a number, but that's all right. Okay, guys. See you around. See ya. Maybe either tomorrow or Sunday. Tomorrow maybe be too not, because every major YouTuber does streams tomorrow. Maybe Sunday. So see you around, guys.